Welcome to my video on how to epoxy pour over live edge wood. So the first thing you're going to do is inspect your live edge pieces, and you want to take a look at if you're going to leave the bark on or leave the bark off. So if you're going to leave the bark on, which is what I'm covering in this video, you want to take a look at how loose the bark is on your live edge pieces. If it's very dry, then the first thing you're going to want to do is to use wood glue or a little bit of epoxy mix and start sealing the pieces back down. If you don't, then in the end, when you're all done, you do risk having chunks come off in the future as the wood starts to experience temperature changes. The best way to seal bark is using a syringe. So if you go on Amazon or run into your pharmacy and you find very tiny syringes with a small tip to them, that is going to be your best bet of sealing the areas. So you're going to want to do the mixture and then start sealing the ends. And they'll start to get hard around 20-30 minutes, and then wait the next day before you start doing your first seal coat. So when you do a seal coat, you're going to want to find an online resin calculator to kind of determine how much resin you're going to need. It's much better to err on the side of having too much resin than it is to not have enough. If you don't have enough mixed and you find yourself having to spread it thin, you will have issues. You will have bubbling, you will have gaps. Keep in mind, if you're working on live edge that has been sitting in a warehouse, or it's the middle of the summer, or it's freshly dried and it's likely over dry. So the first seal coat isn't a true first seal coat. It's going to be absorbed in that wood. So you're going to need 3 to 4 seal coats if you're working with dry wood. If you're working with wet wood, you're going to have another set of issues. So this video is using wood that was extremely dry at the end of a very hot summer. So my first 2 seal coats, which I'm showing in this video, were absorbed into the wood very, very quickly. So that meant that I needed to order in more epoxy and do additional cycles of resin sanding. So after you've done your seal coats, the next thing you want to do before you do your final flood coat, you want to make sure that after you sand it, you don't see any imperfections. So the areas in the video where it shows it looks like it's cloudy versus shiny, that means that there's a depth difference between my resin and my wood. So the fewer the spots, the better you are. So when you're starting to get prepared for that final flood coat, you want to look at the wood in the way that it's almost perfect. So it should be about 75% perfect. So right here in this video, these guys are ready for my flood coat. They look pretty good, but you can still see some inconsistencies, or you can still see some blemishes. That's going to be taken care of in the next 2 flood coats. So you can take a look at the bark, which is what I was examining, making sure that is sealed properly. It is tougher to keep bark on a live edge piece. It does take a lot more effort in between coats because you've got to use a toothbrush to clean them out before you can put the next coat on. And you want to make sure you're cleaning it with 99% alcohol. So not the 70% that you find at Rite Aid or Walgreens. You want to get the very pure 99%, or the kind that comes in a can from Home Depot or Lowe's. So once you're at that good 70% range and you're ready for the flood coat, then you're going to double the amount that you've been using in your resin for your flood coat. Make sure that your area is prepared and nothing is going to get into that sticky resin. So I created a little tent inside my garage using plastic. I hung it around so that way no dust would stir up around it. In the summer, it does dry very, very quickly. You have a lot of less, leeway for mistakes. In the winter, it will not dry. So temperature is a big thing when you're working with resin. So the next few shots here of what's going to look like around the final flood coat, and here it is. Now you can see that it does build a beautiful level of depth. The more resin you add, the more brilliant the wood looks. Keep in mind that every time you add another flood coat, you are adding more weight to that shelf. So just keep that in mind if you have limitations in weight or if you plan on shipping it somewhere. So anyways, that's my video. I hope it helped you with deciding whether or not you're going to pour resin on your live edge, or if you're going to use something like Rubio Monocoat. Is really, really a beautiful finish. It's more of a wax finish, less drying time, less effort, probably costs a half the amount of epoxy resin. So the shelves that you're looking at in my video cost around $200 out of pocket to make. So if you're kind of keeping that in mind, make sure you are doing your first test pieces with some very inexpensive wood and inexpensive resin. So good luck with your project. If you have any questions, shoot them below.